Hi, this is Sarah with Pop Sculpture Designs. A few people have expressed interest in seeing how my process works in creating a figure. And so, since I've been busy fulfilling orders of community Christmas ornaments, I figured I'd just use them to show how my process works. The process is pretty much the same for all of my figures. So, I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get started. I start by digitally sculpting a figure on a program called ZBrush. A simple figure without accessories takes about a day to finish. After sculpting, I load the figure into Slicer software, which creates supports for printing. The supports you can see here are in orange, and the software slices the entire figure into thousands of layers, which I then load onto a USB drive. The USB drive plugs into the side of my printer, and the printer starts printing. The printer builds the figure layer by layer by shining UV light into a vat of photopolymer resin, and the UV light cures the resin. When the printing is finally done, I'll take the build plate off and inspect the figures. I'll use a scraper to detach the figure from the build plate. It's a bit tricky, especially while simultaneously trying to video. But once you get the edge of the scraper under the build layer, it usually comes off pretty quickly. Usually. Anytime now. Oopsie doodles. That'll probably buff out in post. Once I get the figure separated from the build plate, then I try and take off as many of the supports by hand as I can. Some of them are too small for me to get at with my hands, and they'll be removed later. Then I'll do a first rinse with 99% isopropyl alcohol, also known as IPA, but not to be confused with the terrible tasting beer. The IPA helps rinse off uncured resin from the figure, but a bigger rinsing step will be next. Now the figure goes to the spa, and spa treatment starts with a whirlpool. This whirlpool is filled with IPA, and a centrifuge helps completely remove uncured resin from the figure. If the figure's hollow, then after the deep cleaning IPA process, I will use canned air to remove any remaining IPA or uncured resin from inside the figure by spraying air into the drain holes. Then the figure gets to go dry for a little bit. Once dry, the figure goes back to the spa and goes to the tanning booth, where UV light fully cures the resin. I don't want my figures to have holes in them, so I fill the drain holes with an epoxy. I then use an X-Acto knife to remove any remaining supports still on the figure. So at this point, if a customer wants to paint their own figure, I'm done with the process. I can mail this figure to the customer and they'll finish sanding and painting it. If I'm painting the figure, then I start sanding the figure using either my Dremel tool or sandpaper. I have to be honest, I hate sanding. It's my least favorite step. Some people get really, really into sanding, like they start with 150 grit sandpaper and then work all the way up to 1,000 plus grit, but I don't got time for that. But I do several passes and try and get the surface of the figure to be smooth and get rid of any stubble that's left from support connections. Then begins the longest step, painting. I usually start with a beige base layer. Then I just start adding all the colors. So for commission pieces, once the painting's done, I'll send the customer pictures of the figure to OK. If they're happy with the figure, then I ship it off to its forever home. And that is basically my process that I use to create a figure. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for watching.